Today is the 21st of September 2023, and this is a conversation between Emilio Longo and Warren Crossett. Warren, welcome to Skill-Based Art, a learning resource for art students and artist teachers. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us today.
No problem, thank you.
Great, Warren. Well, let's get a start. Warren, born 1966 in Mitcham, Victoria. You are a self-taught realist painter, commercial artist and teacher of illustration based in Melbourne who has a commitment to working from life. With over 30 years of drawing and painting experience, your work is often an ode to the past and includes symbols and metaphors derived from old master paintings and surrealism, which are drawn and painted with a sensitive eye that captures nuances of tone, light and form that is imbued with a broad colour sensibility. Working across the genres of still life, portraiture and landscape, your paintings evidence a slow contemplation of the beauty of that which is commonplace, while still being interested in conceptual themes that incorporate symbology and allegory. With a Certificate of Applied Art from Box Hill College of TAFE gained in 1986, your life as a commercial artist began as an illustrator, producing artworks for children's books, having illustrated 12 children's books to date. 1990 saw the beginning of your teaching career, teaching illustration while simultaneously taking on illustration jobs from both public and private clients. In 1994, your work was selected to appear in an elite world publishing design book titled Graphist Posters, and your scraperboard illustrations were published on PayTel Australian phone cards. In 1995, your work was shown in a major marketing magazine for a group article on elite Melbourne illustrators. As well as children's books, you have produced illustrations for national and international companies, which include Melbourne Airport, Foster's, AFL, Parks Victoria, Fisher-Price, Cadbury Schweppes, as well as completing commissions for Hewlett-Packard, Epsom, Bank of China and Bank of Thailand. Your work has also been included in prestigious journals such as the British Design and Art Direction Annual, and in 2000 you were invited to become a member of the British Design and Art Direction, where you received the annual Silver Award. You were runner-up for the Children's Book Council Australia's Picture Book of the Year in 2007 with your book titled The Sound of the Sea, and your picture book titled This Is Mud, featured on ABC TV's Play School television show between 2010 to 2013. In 2013, you received the People's Choice Award for your painting titled Horror for the Illustrators Australia annual 9x5 exhibition Flourish. Subsequently, in 2015, you won the world's richest art prize, the Doug Moran National Portrait Prize, valued at $150,000. And in 2018, you were a finalist in the Shirley Hanna National Portrait Award. Furthermore, you were a finalist in the National Portrait Gallery Award, the Darling Prize, in 2020, and you exhibited in the Salon des Refusés as a finalist for the Wynne Prize in 2021. In 2021, your painting titled Assurance in Disorder was a finalist again in the Doug Moran National Portrait Prize, after being a semi-finalist in 3 consecutive years, 2016, 2017, 2018, after winning the prize, of course, in 2015. In 2022, you were a finalist in the prestigious 16th International Art Renewal Centre Salon in the portrait category, once again for your portrait titled Assurance in Disorder. You also won the Lethbridge Landscape Prize this year with your painting titled The Environmental Polarity of a Local Creek. As a teacher, you have a commitment to passing on your extensive experience of illustration in many areas such as editorial, publishing, illustration for design, advertising, and art materials and techniques to your students. Today, you live in Melbourne with your wife and 3 children. You work as a teacher of art and illustration a couple of days a week at Melbourne Polytechnic in Preston, while spending the rest of your time painting from your home studio in Doreen. Now, Warren, I understand you have always had a fondness for art, beginning at a young age. As a teenager, you exhibited in various local Rotary Club shows before moving into illustration. Can you provide a summary of your childhood growing up in Ringwood and how art was instilled into you?
Good question. I suppose right from when I was young, I always loved to draw like most children, but never grew out of it.
Sure.
So my dad was particularly good at drawing. He was a cabinet maker, but he was actually really good at sculpture too, and actually produced some really good sort of carvings and so on. He had a whole range of tools that he would use and carve sort of 3D objects, but he was very good at drawing too. My grandfather was also a pretty well-known architect. Before he died, he got an OBE from the Queen for being an architect, and designed a lot of hospitals and churches in Melbourne.
And what was his name, Warren?
Clarence Armstrong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
So, and he was really quite good at drawing too. So I sort of kind of got it from both ends.
Sure.
Yeah.
And was your mother into art at all?
No, she wasn't. But yeah, both my grandfather and my father were.
Sure,
Yeah.
great. You went to Northwood High School in Ringwood North between the years of 1979 to 1982. Did you have supportive art teachers when you were in school? And did you learn anything of substance in art class?
Probably not. As per most high schools, most of them are not great when it comes to art education, but then you can get some which were actually really quite good.
Sure.
I just went to one where, you know, it was just something that people did. But I always had that passion running there regardless of the fact of what was going on in art class.
Sure.
So, you know, I would just love to be dropped out in the bush from when I was young. My dad would sort of take me and drop me off somewhere, and I would just spend half a day or a day painting the landscape. And he'd pick me up later in the day, and yeah.
And this, at your age then, was about?
I mean, obviously, he didn't drop me off, you know, prior to turning maybe 13 or 14.
Sure.
But usually we would ask permission from whoever owned the property, and you know, they'd keep an eye out for you when you were young.
Sure, fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's quite a young age to be interested in landscape in particular. Landscape is a very
So I did
mature.
enjoy landscape from quite a young age.
Sure.
In fact, really most of my art when I was young was just landscape.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't really do too much or if any portraiture at that time.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, in 1982, after leaving high school upon finishing Year 10, you studied art and design in vocational orientation program during Year 11 and tertiary orientation program during Year 12 at Box Hill TAFE. The following year, in 1984, you studied applied art again at Box Hill TAFE until graduating in 1986. Can you recall your early training in the applied art course and how you came to attain the craft of drawing and painting?
Yeah. So when I left high school, I left for the purpose of sort of going into further sort of art training, which was more advanced than the high school that I was at. Yeah, so I, after leaving year 10 at Norwood High School, went to Box Hill College of TAFE, and VOP was the year 11 equivalent, and then year 12 equivalent was TOP. Then after that, the applied art course doesn't exist anymore. Probably the closest equivalent would be a graphic art course these days. So in it, I was allowed to kind of focus on illustration because I was going to go and do graphic design instead. And the college said, "Oh, look, we'll let you sort of focus a bit more on illustration." So I stayed at Box Hill, and that was very good art training at Box Hill. I had some very good teachers there, and that's where most of my sort of art and graphic design and illustration training came from.
Sure. And at that point, were your teachers encouraging working from life, or was it mainly working from photographs?
Mixture, so we had our general drawing subjects and where you did draw from life, and then obviously, when you're doing illustration, you can't work from life, or it's rare. So, you work from photographs and things like that. But mostly illustration is about assembling a fragmented reality.
Sure.
In that you can never find one photograph that contains everything that you need.
Right.
So you often need lots of photographs to actually put together a picture, and it's up to the illustrator to mesh that all in your mind and then come up with something that looks like it's all the one scene.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's well explained, Warren. You must have been doing well in your studies, as I understand in 1985 you won a statewide illustration prize. How did you end up winning this prize?
Well, so that, remembering back to when that it was quite a while ago. So that there was a group exhibition, and that was common in those days with the finished art course. So we had, I think, I can't even remember, maybe 4, 5, 6 colleges or thereabouts from around the state. And then there was I think there were a couple of awards. One was the overall best illustration, which I think I won that award. Yeah.
So from all the schools around the state, you were the winner.
Yeah.
Interesting. And was it based on one particular illustration you had done, or a series?
Well, I actually illustrated a car at that point.
Oh, okay. So that was the winning piece then?
That was the winning piece, yeah.
After finishing your studies, you completed illustration jobs for several advertising companies. Can you recollect this time in your life and how you went about getting work from these companies? Yeah,
so when I left college, I worked for a couple of years at a couple of different design studios, producing illustration. That's what I was there mainly for, but I also did bits of finished art and a little bit of design as well.
Sure.
So that's what I did when I worked for 2 different companies. One was called, from memory, The Art Producers or something like that.
Right.
And then the other one was a design studio in Melbourne.
Interesting.
After that, then I went freelance around about 1990.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's when I started my freelance career. So I went to a place that was called the Talent Store. So they were an artist agent, and that was, I was with them for quite a long time. And I produced a lot of illustration for various clients that would come through their door.
Sure.
Plus also just getting my own work as well. So the Talent Store, being an artist agent, if a job came up and you were suitable for it, they would actually get you to do it.
I see, right. And at this point, you were still quite a young man, right, Warren?
Yeah. So I was still, early 20s at that stage.
Yeah.
So producing work for mainly smaller clients at that time.
Sure.
And then at a certain point, I started with a company that now is no longer in operation as well, but they were called Ducks. So Ducks were Melbourne's, I think they were pretty much the top or only agent in Melbourne once the Talent Store closed down.
Sure.
And they were fabulous. We had the director there called Vicky and another lady there called Di, both of them, lovely ladies who were the agents. They would be the middle person between client and illustrator.
I see.
So I did a lot of, really prominent sort of blue chip jobs at that time.
Right.
As well as being with Illustrators Australia as well. So I'd get work from both areas.
Sure.
And I tended to get a lot of work because I was fairly flexible in the mediums that I would use and the approaches that I would use.
Sure.
Yeah.
And as a young man, Warren, were you very focused in your youth, or were you a bit troublesome, or
No, I was,
very calm?
I was pretty focused. I used to play a lot of sport back then too, so that would be probably one of the only things that would have distracted me.
Sure. Great.
But I was pretty focused, back then.
Great.
And sort of, enjoyed creating art, and enjoyed the challenge of working to a brief. Making sure the client was happy with whatever you did.
Sure. Very good. I understand you developed your drawing technique mainly while working as an illustrator for a variety of major companies, as you've explained. Can you elaborate on how your drawing style has developed over the years, and if there is a technical distinction between your drawings done for illustration purposes and those done as fine artworks?
Yeah, so these days I tend to focus more on realism as far as structure is concerned, and I do modify the form a little bit when I do an allegorical piece. I slightly stylize it, but it's very hard to recognize. It's just softening it a little bit as far as structure is concerned.
Sure.
But when I was illustrating, I would work in quite a raft of different approaches. So I would, dabble in a lot of different drawing methods. So sometimes it could have been cartoon, other times very stylized, other times realism.
Sure.
And then I would mix and match techniques as well. In the early days in illustration, like in the 90s, before the internet really hit and the computer had a big say on things, the more versatile you were, the busier you were.
Sure.
So hence I was very busy as an illustrator because I could pick up and put down a number of different things.
Sure.
Whereas, as the internet came in and access to the world became a lot more simplistic for getting work, my style tended to narrow down a little bit and just oscillate mainly from either realism to sort of more stylized work. I'd kind of pick up just those two usually.
Sure. So we have to understand that this is all pre-digital, right?
A lot of it's pre-digital.
A lot of it would have been done by hand. I mean, you didn't have things like Adobe Suite or Photoshop, Illustrator, things like that.
It came in towards the end of when I was illustrating, obviously, because I stopped illustrating in 2015.
Okay.
But I was still mainly a traditional illustrator.
Sure.
Even though I had the capacity to do the digital stuff, and occasionally I would digitally tweak things, as a final production thing.
Sure.
But most things that I did were still traditional.
So just recollecting back to that point in time where digital came out and became more and more popular, Warren, for a lot of illustrators, did they become sort of obsolete, the traditional ones that were illustrating by hand? Was it hard to
not really
make the progression to technology?
In some ways, it's treated as a different medium.
Yes.
So this person illustrates in watercolor. This person illustrates in oils. This person illustrates on the computer. These days, it's very hard to put a statistic on this.
Yeah.
But I would assume that probably maybe slightly over half people, half of the sector would potentially be in the digital realm.
Yeah.
And the other half would either be traditional or a mixture of digital and traditional. There's a lot of mixtures of digital and traditional these days.
Sure. In your opinion, Warren, is there a demand for traditional illustrators still in this day and age?
I wouldn't say a demand. They really don't care how you create your image as long as it looks how they want it to look.
Sure.
So the idea is to create a folio that is potentially marketable. Now, whatever that technique and style is that you use, if it finds a home in the marketplace they don't care what you did to create it, as long as you can achieve the same look that's in your folio again and again.
Sure. Good.
Yeah.
Great advice, Warren. Observing the illustrations you have done for various children's books throughout time, one can identify a clear change in style. For instance, in 2005, you illustrated a book by Jacqueline Harvey titled The Sound of the Sea, which features sincere, realist-based renderings completed in watercolour and dry pastel. Subsequently, in 2009, you illustrated Catherine Apple's children's book titled This Is Mud, utilising stylised cartoon-style watercolour illustrations. Do you care to comment on the stylistic change between these two books and why it occurred?
When I was illustrating, I would enjoy the challenge of trying different things and doing different things. Plus, with those two books, you can't really use the same structure and technique with those two approaches. One was a book on grief. So if you went down a cartoon route with a book on grief, it's just not going to work.
Right.
So I had to really go towards a more realistic, sensitive approach with The Sound of the Sea.
Yeah.
But with This Is the Mud, it really didn't require, or really you don't want a realistic, picture book on that, because it was meant to be sort of funny and a bit tongue-in-cheek. It was kind of almost a rhyme type story, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I just opted for a structure and a technique which would suit the book.
Sure. Absolutely.
So it's kind of, we're talking about, the right approach for the right job.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you ever expect that This Is Mud would end up being showing on ABC's Play School, the television show?
No, but I mean, back in those days when you're illustrating, I was very used to whatever I illustrated being quite prominent.
Yeah.
Like I've done things for the TV. I've produced a stamp for Australia Post. I've, the old Buller label. I did the cows on that. And, so nearly everything I did had some kind of visible commercial outcome. So having it read on the ABC was not a huge deal.
Sure.
It was just one of those things that happen when you do things. Yeah.
Fascinating. So you became used to seeing a lot of your work in
just
media.
around in media.
That's excellent, Warren.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the challenges of illustrating children's books?
Mainly the sequence. Getting your characters looking consistent from page to page to page. And just the slog of producing a lot of works that have to work together as a package, but as individual items as well. So, yeah, they are complicated. You have to really design them carefully, really work on the design aspect, and yeah, have a sort of a really good view of the overall, as well as the it's both the micro and the macro. Sure.
So with a lot of those books that you illustrated throughout your day, Warren, the original drawings of which, do you still own those?
Yeah, still own them. Some of them I've sold.
Okay.
Some of them, for the odd one here and there, I've actually, if I used a model, I would sometimes hand over. I remember doing a kid's book once, and I used a young boy and gave the original cover to his family as a thank you for being a model.
Sure.
So yeah, I've got archives of lots of old illustrations and things like that.
Great. Have you found that illustrating children's books is a viable way for a fine artist or illustrator to earn a living in our day and age?
In America, you get a lot of illustrators that do fine art and a lot of fine artists that do illustration. Over here, I find it's less so. I don't illustrate anymore after 2015. But prior to that, you can't make a living out of solely kids' books. So I did a number of things. Like as you've already stated, I've produced a lot of things for advertising illustration contexts, a lot of illustration for design contexts, publishing contexts, whether it be book covers or children's books, and then editorial contexts. And then outside of that, I've done botanical contexts, and so illustrations for as many things as possible, and being flexible enough to cover those different areas. And then in this day and age, the most important thing is that people know you exist. So advertising is a big thing these days.
Sure.
I was around at the time when things were largely localized.
Yeah.
So if you were known locally, you're good.
Good.
So these days, people really have to advertise as broadly as possible.
Sure.
So, as far and wide they can advertise, the better. Sure. The more chance of you picking up work from interstate one day and then, from across the world the next day and so on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And throughout your years illustrating, Warren, were you able to earn a decent living? Or?
Yeah. I mean, that, and look, doing solely illustration would have been a little bit more of a bumpy ride, because sometimes, you've just got work coming out your ears, and lots of work on, and that could last a long time. And then it would go through quiet patches as well.
Sure.
Where if the economy contracted a little bit like that, people just hang on to their money, and you could notice a little bit of a lull for a short period.
Sure.
So, plus it is very taxing illustration with deadlines and whatnot. So for me to hold a small percentage time fraction of teaching the whole time was really good, because I'd be able to work hard on a big piece. It's delivered, and then I could have a week off from illustration to recover and recuperate, and still have that small trickle of teaching in there, which would support it, and that way it was able to be sustainable in the long term.
Sure, that sounds like a good balance.
Yeah.
In 1990, you began teaching illustration at NMIT in Preston, which would later be called Melbourne Polytechnic. Why did you decide to take this job, and what attracted you to teaching?
Well, probably in my last statement, it probably semi-answered that. It was a lot of the idea of teaching was to, give back from what I'd learned and experienced and developed. And the other was, a small measure of level income in your life, where you've got a baseline there.
Yeah.
And also, as I've stated just prior, would be so that you could rest if you needed to.
Sure.
Because, illustration could get very taxing and exhausting at times.
Sure.
If you've got a long-term project on and the deadline's running tight, sometimes I would have to work very late and long hours to kind of finish things off.
Yeah.
And having a baseline of something there would mean that I could just not doing anything for the next week or two, depending on how exhausted you are, to kind of recuperate.
Right. Good. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Between 1990 to 2014, you worked as a freelance illustrator for Illustrators Australia. Throughout these years, what were some of the most outstanding illustrations you got to create?
Ooh. I mean, there were lots of them. The one at Foster's stands out a little bit because it was an interesting job. I had to create an illustration that replicated the art of the 1700s and 1800s. So I took a trip with the art director to the Racing Museum in Flemington.
Okay.
And we looked through all the different pieces, and the art director's pointing out, I want it to have this sort of feel and this sort of structure to it, and I want it to, so we discussed all that.
Yeah.
And then I had to go away and, research, the methods of drawing. I knew the techniques, which is basically just oils, but, by using a limited palette, you can get the old world look.
Yeah.
So I knew how to create that, but the nuances of structure of how they drew horses and figures and characters needed a little bit of exploration.
Right.
Because they were kind of a little bit stiff, and the horses of, when they drew them running, galloping, their limbs would stretch out either way.
Okay.
And that's how they used to draw them in those days. But it needed to be a unique piece. It couldn't be something based off anything. So, working on that, it was a really good budget because it was for Foster's. Produced a piece of work for a swing tag, a smaller version, and then a bigger piece, which was used on posters, and on the TV, and all sorts of things like that too. So that was a good, interesting piece of work. That one. Stamp for Australia Post was really good.
Right.
I had to do a wood engraving for that. It was based on the friendship bridge between Thailand and Laos.
Okay.
So it was based on a bridge.
Right.
And the whole process of, it for currency, there had to be secrecy around it. I couldn't keep any backup work or anything. Like, it had to go into archive and things like that.
Sure.
So there were lots of components to that, and lots of things that made it interesting. Doing kids' books were always interesting. So, then I could just rattle off a whole stack of, different things. Like the brief for the airport was great. There's just, 100 or so that you could rattle off.
Sure. So throughout your time illustrating, Warren, did you, when you were freelancing, you would have been working in your own studio, or did you?
Well, no, I just had a room in the house.
Okay.
So I did have a studio. I worked in Ringwood for quite a while. Yeah. Ringwood East. So I did have a studio out the back of the house at that point.
Sure.
But the kids would often, beg me to come inside. So I'd often work on the kitchen table as well, so that they could be around me.
Sure.
And, often they would come out to the studio and just sit with me.
Right.
Sometimes I'd even sit one on the lap and work.
Great.
And so on as well. But you don't need a great deal of space, I find, as an illustrator. But as an artist, I just need to have more space than just a room.
Sure. Great. Moving forward, I understand from 2013 you had a strong desire to enter the art world. Where did this desire come from?
Oh, just obviously looking around at art at the NGV or in galleries, being always teaching in an art department. I'd have colleagues that were artists, visual artists that would work in the area. So, they were always very inspiring, and
Sure.
So I just kind of felt motivated to go down that line.
Right. But when you initially set out with your illustration career, Warren, was fine art something that you were thinking about?
I always thought about it, but I didn't really see it back then as a viable option for sustainable living.
Right, absolutely.
And knew that there was a living to be made in the illustration world, but I was realistic about the art world, thinking that unless there's some kind of alignment of a lot of different things, then that's always not possible.
Sure, makes sense. 2015 was a year that altered the course of your life after winning the Doug Moran National Portrait Prize, of which the $150,000 reward is thought to be the world's most generous art prize. I understand the Moran was the first art prize you had entered, since the Rotary shows you partook in as a teenager. In fact, it was one of your colleagues who first suggested that you enter your work in competitions. Is that correct?
That is correct. Jeff Tolchard, who used to work at Melbourne Polytechnic, he's now in Queensland. He's a really good abstract artist and a very interesting fellow. He's a great guy. He would nag me all the time that I should enter, art contests, and, I'd always just put him off and, just laugh and ignore him.
Yeah.
But his little nagging that happened all the time, I thought, well, maybe I should, So I set about, whilst doing illustration, creating the piece for the Doug Moran as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. All right. So as you were working in illustration, you actually got a start on the Doug Moran piece.
Yeah. So I fitted it in around, obviously, illustration work that I was doing.
Right.
And also, that little bit of teaching that I do as well.
Sure. So what year was it that you actually begun the Doug Moran winning piece?
Probably would have been, I reckon I would have started brainstorming about late 2013.
Okay. So it was a couple of years before you actually entered.
Yeah. So late 2013, I started thinking about it and the idea came.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually start it until, I think, somewhere in 2014, early 2014 maybe.
Okay. So the creation of painting was on and off for about a year, was it?
Yeah, probably about that, yeah.
About a year. Okay.
I mean, I had a lot of other things on. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any expectations upon entering the Moran Prize in 2015?
No, none at all. As I said, I just did it because other people, well, particularly Jeff, was actually saying, you should try it. So I tried it.
So you had no expectation. You went in blind.
Yeah, I was completely, well, not completely ignorant, but mostly ignorant of the art world, how it operates, etc.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Your winning painting was a homage to traditional depictions of Saint Jerome and is titled Self-Portrait After Saint Jerome, Flanders. It depicts yourself as Saint Jerome and is based on the original 16th century painting thought to be by Jules Van Cleve. The subject matter is derived from biblical scripture from Corinthians, which explains that the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. Your version has many references to the original painting. However, instead of pointing to a skull, you are pointing to a letter which has a stamp of a skull on it. I understand you first saw the portrait of St. Jerome while walking through the National Gallery of Victoria. As you've stated, quote, I saw that particular painting and I just ruminated on that idea that I saw there and thought of ways I could symbolize what I wanted to say, unquote. Although the painting is deeply allegorical, your preference is to leave it open for interpretation. Why is this the case?
Well, there's a lot of complicated symbols in there, and themes and interweaving elements and things like that. So it would take probably some time to fully explain what I was thinking. So therefore, it's mostly good that people look at it and try and find, some of the things that are in there. Sure.
Good. And that's a good strategy to take as well, because it does allow room for intrigue and exploration rather than being just a literal piece. Yeah. I understand you worked on the painting intermittently, as you stated, quote, I picked it up and put it down a few times while I did other work, unquote. Can you outline the process you used to complete the painting and whether you worked from life or photographs?
Well, the process was mainly a traditional piece for that period, which is to create a grisaille underpainting. So that was, a red-brown sort of monotone painting underneath. So first of all, I obviously created a pencil sketch. And prior to that, I sort of designed the piece. So I usually, when you're doing an illustration, you often start with a design process, and then from a design process you go to a drawing process, and from a drawing process to a painting process. So I took a similar approach with this, where, you know, first of all, I really crafted the composition from a design perspective with you know, thumbnail sketches and so on. And then from there, when I was happy, I went to a drawing process where I sort of collated all the information that I would need to go in there, because there's a lot of different elements that are going on in that particular painting.
Yeah.
Obviously, I referenced the painting that I saw in the NGV. So that was, you know, something that, you know, I'd planted firmly in my head.
Yeah.
As a reference point. Then it's very hard to pull that gesture and paint it and wear what I was wearing as well. So I did take a series of photographs, no one that sort of exactly did it, but just a few different ones. And that combined with the different reference sources that I needed for the painting, plus some memory, plus a little bit of, you know, mirror work as well.
Okay.
I did a kind of a hybrid of a number of different approaches when it came to actually painting the final.
Sure.
But after producing the grisaille or the monotone underpainting, it's then the time for the overpainting.
Sure.
And the overpainting is when you put all the details in. So just in that still life that we did today, that's just the underpainting.
Right.
And when that's allowed to dry, then, you know, I'd be sort of fully colouring that up and just putting all the detail in.
Sure. Are you able to put into numbers approximately how many hours you would have spent working on that particular painting, Warren?
Oh, it's very hard to tell. One thing's for certain, if you see the pic live, there's a tremendous amount of detail in it. So, and that takes just hours of time. You know, you're basically doing a painting in each section.
Right.
It's not like some of the other work that I do, which is a bit looser.
Sure.
You know, some of the other things I do are very loose, so they're a lot faster to produce.
Sure.
That particular one, you know, really had to buckle down and kind of replicate the technique of that era, which was very labour intensive and, you know, very focused in nearly every zone on there.
Absolutely, very microscopic.
Yeah. So a lot going on.
Sure.
So it's very hard to put a time on it, especially when I was doing other things around it.
Yeah.
You know, so my small teaching fraction, other illustration work. So it's very hard to judge. But I'm sure it took, you know, I don't know, maybe, look, I'm just guessing, but maybe 6 months.
Wow.
Or even maybe less, maybe 5 months, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's very much similar time frame to what the early people.
Yeah. Well, to get those techniques, you've got to put the time in. They used to, you know,
That's
sometimes they would take years on a painting.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I didn't have that luxury, but you know.
Now, the judges for the 2015 Moran Prize were artists Rick Amor and Angus Trumbull, director of the National Portrait Gallery in Canberra. Regarding your portrait, Mr. Trumbull stated, quote, "The judges were enormously impressed by the winning portrait's technical virtuosity, its concentrated energy, the boldness and playfulness of the idea, and the success with which the artist rose to the exceedingly difficult challenge he set himself of mastering a square format, and with such innate self-confidence and even a hint of wry humour," unquote. Was working on a square canvas a conscious decision you made, and did you find it challenging?
Probably didn't find the format challenging, because I was used to, in the illustration world, you're changing formats all the time, because every brief is different, every format is different. But from a design perspective, when I was working it out and exploring how it was going to look, I just arrived at that as the best possible composition for all the elements that were there.
Sure. Interesting. Moving forward, Former director of the Art Gallery of New South Wales, Edmund Capon, announced the winner of the Moran Prize. While watching the press announcement, I recall seeing you standing beside Andrew Bono as you were announced winner in Juniper Hall. Can you recall the exact moment when you found out that you were the winner and what your reaction was?
Yeah, I can recall recall that. It was a very strange moment because being largely ignorant of the way the art world works, I thought that the Doug Moran had invited me up along with all the finalists.
Right.
So therefore, I really didn't know what was coming.
Sure.
So I think most other artists, and in hindsight, when you get invited up to something, it means because they really want you there.
Right.
Whereas I thought because it was such a big thing, and I was just so happy to be a finalist, that, when I was invited up there, it would be the same for everyone else.
Right.
So when that was read out, it's like the world seemed to stand still for a moment. It's like, hey, is that my name they're actually saying?
Sure.
And then it's like I just kind of went into another zone where, it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Right.
There's cameras flashing everywhere and, all sorts of things going on.
Sure.
I had no speech prepared. I had nothing.
Right.
So I just stood up there cold turkey, not really knowing what to say.
Well, you've done well considering you didn't have a speech prepared. You were able to speak about some of the meaning behind the actual painting itself. Which was very good, considering you were under a lot of pressure with the media and everything. So at that point, the Moran, did they put you up in a hotel to stay overnight?
Well, I mean, because I flew up and I thought, oh well, I'm just going up there as a finalist.
Right.
They actually booked a hotel for the night for me.
Right.
But I'd already booked a return flight.
Oh, okay.
Because I just thought, look, I'll just go up there, have a quick look at the exhibition, slip in and slip out,
Right.
like cheer on whoever won. And because I really loved going there. I went there a fraction early before the announcement and before anyone was there because I really wanted to look at the other work.
Sure.
So, because I just love looking at, other people's work.
Right.
I really enjoy it. And variety too. I'm really big variety buff. I love the more abstract work. I love really naive stuff. I love stylo stuff. I love realism. I love just almost the full gamut, really.
Sure.
I appreciate what goes into each thing. I think that appreciations come from illustration. And in the illustration world, there's wildly varying stylistic variation.
Yeah.
So, and having to look at that all the time, I think has developed an appreciation for nearly every form of art.
Right.
As long as it's at a good standard, I can really appreciate it.
Sure.
So therefore, I spent a good deal of time up there at Juniper Hall before the crowds. And I'm looking at all the brilliant work that is being hung there thinking, oh, wow, that one's going to win, and that one, and that one. I remember looking at Andrew's work and thinking, oh, wow, that has to win,
Yeah.
And other people there, Everett, I can't pronounce his second name, but and just many other brilliant artists exhibiting, Lewis Miller and, all these people that, know way more than me.
Sure.
Are there, so I really had no idea.
Well, and they don't give you any hint or any warning.
Well, I thought there may have been a slight hint, but because you just thought, nah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
This just doesn't happen.
Sure.
So I had an inkling, but only an inkling.
Well, and what gave you that sense that there may have been something?
I remember Jeff telling me just the day before I flew up, he said, if they've invited you up, it's because, maybe it's because of that. And I just shrugged him off and said, nah,
yeah,
no way.
Right.
So that gave me an inkling, but, yeah.
Right.
they did want to make sure I was there, but once again, I thought they did that to every finalist.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Interesting. And as soon as you had been announced winner, Warren, you had to go straight to an interview with the ABC. Is that right?
Well, first of all, I did a number of press interviews to journalists, like a couple of ones to radio journalists and a couple of ones to print journalists. So there's quite a few interviews that I had to do.
Right.
And then my memory seems to escape, but I can't remember whether we did the ABC one straight away. I think it might have been, or it could have been after lunch. I can't quite remember.
Sure.
But the interview was not long thereafter either.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with all the journalists, do they sort of put you in a room and they all get a shot at questioning you? Or
Yeah. Some interviewed me outside in the sun.
Okay.
Other people just in the room.
Right.
And other people another room.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are they quite civil, or are they all trying to fight over?
Oh, no. They're very civil.
Sure.
They're very civil. It's not like, a politician or something like that where they're ramming a microphone down your throat. They just take their turn. And then, they were all great, the journalists. Yeah.
Sure. Once you were announced as the winner of the Moran Prize, you stated, quote, "The win was very unexpected. I'm still processing it. I think my wife is going to lose the plot when she finds out." Unquote. How did you break the news to your wife, and what was her reaction?
Well, she was not very happy that I said that. Because, I think I was so on the spot that I just didn't know what to say.
Sure.
But I knew that she would be, just quite surprised. So I used it quite a strong phrase to back that up.
Sure.
So I couldn't actually tell her straight away because I had too many interviews. But she kind of almost guessed because it took too long to kind of get to her. So by the time I told her, obviously she was incredibly excited. Yeah.
Sure. So was it just, guess what, I've won? Or
just as soon as I rang, she guessed.
So she knew.
So I really didn't need to say anything,
Sure. So she would have heard from you before the media.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure. Interesting. Yep. Fascinating. After winning the Moran Prize, the ABC interviewed you on national television and asked what you were going to do with the money. At the time, you claimed that you weren't sure. However, in another article, you mentioned that you had no firm plans on how to spend the money, but you had a few ideas in mind, such as putting it towards your mortgage or a holiday, and even giving some money to charity, and possibly even buying some new art materials. Did you follow through with these plans?
That interview was actually before the ABC one.
Oh, was it?
So really, I hadn't had a chance to think that through either. I mean, really, at that point, my head was just spinning like, what is happening, doing all these interviews and things like that. You really don't have a chance to kind of really think through what you're going to say. So I just said in that particular interview just the first things that came to mind.
Right. Sure. Interesting. Yeah. Very good. It's funny that you say, that your head was spinning and such. I recall a mutual friend we have, Marcus Wills, when he won the Archibald. There's a photo of him that's floating around on the internet when he was announced winner. There was about 10 media journalists with the microphones sort of in his face, waiting to get the first report out there. So it can be quite intensive. Yeah,
especially when I wasn't expecting it due to my ignorance. These days, it would be a lot easier. Sure.
Yeah. And you were there on your own. You had no one to share this with?
No one to share it with. Just went up there on my own, as I said, if I thought that was going to happen, I probably would have taken Chris up there as well.
Yeah, sure. Now, the same year that you won the Moran Prize in 2015, you began focusing your attention on fine art exclusively. Referring back to the ABC interview from 2015, you explained that, quote, illustration and art are a little bit separate. I always wanted to do fine art at some stage, but illustration kept me busy, unquote. After winning the prize, you stated, quote, winning the Moran Prize has launched my career into the art world where illustration will be a thing of the past for me, unquote. Can you explain what making this transition from illustration to fine art was like for you?
Pretty good and pretty easy. Obviously, when you're winning that amount of money, you can, it was then I thought, look, I'm just done with late nights and deadlines and, staying up all night, finishing a brief, getting it whisked away by courier and then stumbling into the classroom the next day and teaching.
Sure.
So for me, it was, almost a no-brainer, really.
Okay.
I'd done, everything that I could do in illustration after doing it for so long.
Sure.
Really, basically now, you've got a lot more freedom to structure the day that you want.
Sure.
I don't have to rush things all the time. It's just been a lot more easy to sort of work through life doing art than it is illustration.
Sure.
Illustration sometimes felt like you're in a washing machine a lot of the time.
Right.
As you're dragged into another job and then another one and
sure.
Things like that. Whereas doing art is a lot more linear.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you actually won the Moran and you had that security behind you of having the prize, that actually is what made you decide that, okay, it's time for me to leave illustration?
Yeah, that along with, I think, I'd sort of extracted everything I wanted to out of illustration from that point.
Sure. Interesting. Fantastic. Yeah. So once you come back home from being in Sydney, was it a conscious decision? That's it. I'm done with illustration.
Yeah. I pretty much made my mind up as soon as it was read out.
Okay, great. Yeah. It's interesting how just when it comes to finances and things like that.
Yeah.
Once you're in a position where you are secure, it does open your life up in other different ways as well.
Yeah.
Now, your winning Moran portrait was hung in Juniper Hall in Sydney as part of the Four Finalists exhibition from the 23rd of March to the 10th of April 2016. It was also hung in the Cairns Art Gallery from November 18th, 2016 to January 29th, 2017, along with the fellow finalists. The former exhibition included yourself, Guy Morgan, Darren MacDonald and Andrew Bono. Did you find that you as an artist received more recognition after having won the Moran Prize?
Oh, of course. You don't get that kind of exposure without some kind of recognition coming back. A prize of that nature just opens doors and gives you exposure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So nowadays, Warren, in the art circle that you're involved with, do you find people that you may have not met who come up to you and say, "Oh, you're Warren Crossett, the winner of the Doug Moran"?
Not so much. I mean, a lot of that is. You have to have your face everywhere for that to happen.
Sure.
But look, a little bit of that does happen from time to time.
Sure.
And usually if people hear your name and they've got some kind of connection to the art world, then they'll go, oh, okay,
Sure.
That was you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Now, this time of year is usually when the Moran start to take place, and we've just learned that the Moran Prize for this year, 2023, is not running. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't really have too many positive or negative thoughts on that. It's kind of neutral. I mean, obviously they need to, you know, as you were stating earlier, you know, potentially renovate Juniper Hall or whatever they need to do. But I'm sure they'll be back, you know, the year after.
Sure.
Bigger and better than ever.
Well, let's hope so, because it does bring some of the best artists to the forefront. I mean, that and, of course, the Archibald Prize.
Yeah.
So let's hope that next year it will be back. Moving forward, your subject matter ranges from traditional portraiture, which incorporates symbology, conceptual themes, and portraits with landscapes, some still lives, private commissions, and even some abstract work. Throughout your life, you seem to have experimented with different artistic styles before arriving at realism. Today, what genre of painting is your preference and why?
I suppose you'd say, you know, in some ways realism now, but I also, as I said, I like to gently transition into slightly softened, stylized work.
Okay.
You know, the one that I won the Doug Moran, if you look at it, it's just not straight realism. The drawing has been ever so slightly softened, so that it reflects the art of the era.
Sure.
So, you know, in doing that, you have to very carefully calibrate the actual pencil sketch, so it is just that little bit stylized. You know, a lot of people trace or use grids and things like that. I don't do any of that. I just tend to draw it.
Sure.
And that just imparts just a tiny bit of a natural style into the work.
Sure.
Along with that slight intention to just ever so slightly stylize.
Sure.
So, you know, if I sit down to do, you know, each piece of work, you know, I usually ask the question, do I need to produce this as being highly realistic? Is that my intention, or is my intention to slightly stylize the piece in structure? So, you know, that comes from my illustration background, where I would do quite a big gamut, whereas now it's limited to either realism or just very gentle structural stylization.
Sure. So are you striving for more of a naturalism in your work at this point, or do you
probably more naturalism at this point.
So you're trying to move away from that stylization, that interpretation of the drawing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I still love doing all other forms of art, but you can't do that as an artist.
Right.
It's something that I was lucky enough to, you know, in the illustration world in the early days, before they liked people finding a particular style, I just enjoyed doing lots of different approaches.
Oh, yeah, and you can definitely see that in your body of work. I mean, early days, there was a lot of surrealist inspired.
Yeah, a lot of surrealist
distorted work.
Yeah, distorted work. So, yeah, I did quite a bit of variety back then, whereas now it tends to sort of focus in and zero in more on naturalism.
And it's more, do you find as you've gotten older, it's come with your maturing sensibility? Realism is a mature form of art.
Yeah, it's just more something that I can do. I think I would feel a little bit shortchanged if I did really heavily stylized stuff and I couldn't go back to realism.
Sure.
Although I really love doing the other stuff, I think I would miss the realism more.
Right.
So therefore I focus in there.
Sure.
Whereas, you know, if I didn't quite have that drive out this end, I would be happy to go down a path of really form distortion and, really playing around with, different techniques to achieve different effects, which I can do all those. I can do all the heavy textured stuff and the palette knife, and I did all that sort of stuff when I was illustrating. But
sure.
I think I would just miss the representational stuff too much if I had to zero in on one of those other genres.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd still love it, but I think I'd still miss the representational stuff.
And in your body of work in the early years, there was some pure abstraction that you were dabbling in. Is that something that you'd say you're done with now?
No, I still enjoy doing abstract work. I think pure abstract work is so different from realism that, I think there are artists out there that do those two extremes. I think doing too many things that are near each other but kind of quite diverse, then people think that you haven't got a style.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Whereas, what's his name? I'm thinking that really prominent artist, one that does super realism and then complete abstraction. Very famous. I could get the name wrong, so I'm not going to say it.
Sure. Okay. Now, in 2018, you were a finalist in the Shirley Hanna National Portrait Prize with your painting titled My Firstborn Rebecca. This is surely one very intimately painted oil portrait with exquisite detail. I imagine it would have been painted from life in multiple sessions?
Not so much. It's very hard with people these days to pin them down, doesn't matter who they are, and to devote large portions of time to actually do that. So I had to do a similar thing that I did with the Doug Moran piece, in that, I'm doing some parts from memory, some parts from photographic, and then some parts from life.
Okay.
So, sometimes I would get, back to, just stand a certain way, or I'd just be observing her without even her talking about it sometimes.
Sure.
Just while I'm chatting with her, and I'm looking at the way the light falls on her face, or, the way her nose curves and things like that. And I'm almost making mental notes at that point, along with memory and also a series of photographs too. I never like to take one photograph and then just follow it.
Right.
I tend to feel that it sometimes can be a bit too static that way. But when you're using a range of photographs, sometimes you can get almost the look of, what it's like to actually look at someone live, where if you've got two eyes, well, you're actually seeing two images anyway. They're just being fused in your mind.
That's right.
So I usually like to try and get a raft of sources if possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, that particular painting of your daughter Rebecca was part of a series where you had your other two children painted as well. Is that correct?
No. I did a series of three of my children, three smaller ones.
Right, yeah.
And they were just faces.
Sure. Okay.
Whereas that particular one was a full figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Right. Some oil painters despise acrylics. However, you seem to master both mediums very well. Others turn to working with acrylics due to certain physiological reactions that they have to oil painting solvents. Nowadays, it seems your preference is to work with oils. What is your take on the oils versus acrylic debate?
Look, there's something about an oil painting that I think, well, you've got more time to blend, you've got more time to consider. I used to use acrylics a lot when I was illustrating, just drying times. You can work through the layers a lot faster, deadlines, things like that. So I did use some oils when I was illustrating, but they were usually reserved for either big budget jobs or pieces where I had more time to work on it, so I could work on it in layers. So I don't really think there's much of a debate between those two. From a contemporary art perspective, from a realism perspective, acrylics can be, look equally as good as an end result if you really know how to handle them properly.
Sure.
But there's nothing like a really well painted oil painting. It just has that, I think, a little bit of an edge. From a naturalistic perspective, I would say. From a contemporary art perspective, I don't think it really matters, because there's some brilliant artists out there who use acrylic and are doing portraiture or whatever. So I do swap to acrylic if there's a reason for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And
so
as you're working in oils, I understand you often work on an acrylic base.
Yeah, not always, but it depends. If I want to save time, getting an acrylic base down is faster than painting a base down in oils and then having to wait for it to dry.
Sure.
So it's just a faster process.
Sure. In 2019, you partook in a local project for the city of Darebin titled This Place. The project involved 10 local writers, visual artists, photographers, and one songwriter who were matched to iconic locations in the city of Darebin. You had 5 weeks to create a new work inspired of the place that you were randomly given. Your allocated place was Edgar's Creek in Reservoir, Melbourne. How did you initially get involved with this project?
Well, they approached me.
Did they?
So, yeah, they approached me and said, look, we know that you work in and around the Darebin area. So Preston campus, they had heard of me as an artist. So they went out and they sourced, like I said, a prominent writer and a comic and, poet and all these sort of different people that were well known but had some kind of connection to the area. Even though I don't live in the area, I teach near the area, and the creek actually runs quite close to the Preston campus.
Sure.
So, and then all the people were given different parts to work with. Some people had a certain street, other people's had a landmark, other people, and I was given Edgar's Creek.
Right.
So, I didn't know a lot about Edgar's Creek, but I had to do my homework on it, look at its history, where it flowed. So, therefore, I went to explore it. So, I started up at I knew already where the headwaters were, and they were nice, beautiful fields at one point. But I knew they were putting a location in there, like a neighbourhood.
Yes, yeah.
So I went to look at that, and I thought, whoa, that looks shocking. And then I went further down the creek, and I thought, oh, that's not too bad. And then I looked at another section, and that was hideous. And then it ended up good.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea of the fact that just man and how they treat the environment can be quite dramatic in its nature. So I always loved bodies of water and things like that. When I was a kid, I used to love creeks, just drawn to them just for their beauty and things like that.
Sure.
And I've always thought, if we had have protected of the environment around them, then we could have populated in between them.
Right.
Rather than build over them and dump everything into it and, basically just totally destroy them.
Sure.
And thereby, hurt platypus and, all sorts of creatures you're sort of damaging then as well.
Sure.
So when I got Edgar's Creek, I was just struck by the literally the polarity of wild differentiation between when it looked good and not so good,
right,
and when it was well treated and not so well treated.
Sure.
So I just came up with the idea of doing 2 panels, which were really very bad, and then 2 panels which had looked pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, as you stated, you ended up creating a 4-panel painting titled "The Environmental Polarity of a Local Creek." The painting comments on the development and disappointment of the surrounding land and reflects on the effects of humans on nature, with each panel depicting a different section of the creek and how it has been impacted by urban development. I understand you were fascinated by the tale of opposites. The creek to you was all about polarity, as you stated, quote, "You can get really beautiful things and then really ugly things rolled into one," unquote. Why did you feel compelled to document this particular patch of water? Now, as you stated, it wasn't your choice. It was just given to you.
It was given to me, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, This painting came to be exhibited in 2021 in the Salon des Refusés at the National Trust SH Irving Gallery in Sydney. I understand the painting was created on 4 hardboard panels that were laid with linen and painted with acrylics. Can you explain the process you used to paint the 4 panels?
Yeah, so it was a similar process to what I usually do, and that is to start with a design process.
Okay.
So, I did some sketches, I did some thumbnails, I planned out how they would kind of sit together as a whole.
Sure.
But also painted them to be appreciated as individual panels as well.
Okay.
So it can kind of be both. So once I went through the design process, once again, the drawing process, I did a few sketches, based on what I wanted it to, look like and how it was to be constructed.
Right.
And then I just, when I was ready, I transferred it down onto the surface and then created a, coloured acrylic ground again. 2 panels were with a limited palette, so the 2 ugly ones, where the headwaters, which was just got the, the drainage there and everything like that. That one was using a limited palette, like a very limited palette, probably only 4 colours.
You can see that,
Yeah, and then the second one was full colour, and then the third colour was back to that limited palette again.
Yeah.
And then the last one, full colour.
Sure. And you use acrylic for these particular paintings, not oil.
Yes.
So your justification for that?
Just drying time.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get intricacy with acrylic than it is oils. So acrylic has that capacity. You can get a 1-hair brush. You can still do it with oils. It's just a little bit easier.
Sure.
And a little bit quicker to achieve detail. So even though I only finished 2 panels for that event, I had planned to do the 4 and use it to exhibit later.
Okay.
So I finished 2 panels, like one positive one, one negative one, but then later on I did the other positive and negative to go with it and make a set of 4.
Sure.
So, so therefore, because the deadline wasn't that, far away, I had to create that work relatively quickly.
Right.
So therefore I opted for acrylic in that case.
Sure. And Warren, what comes of that series of paintings today?
Currently it's in Brisbane. It was the winner of the Lethbridge Landscape Prize.
Yes, this year. Yep.
So it's actually up there in Brisbane still as we speak.
Sure. And will that come back to you at some point?
Eventually, yeah.
Great. Moving forward, in 2022, you were the judge for the Victorian Artists Society's drawing exhibition. Can you elaborate on how you found the experience of being an arts show judge? And this was your first time being a judge, to my understanding?
Pretty much. Look, I've judged lots of illustration shows before.
Okay.
And I have judged a couple of shows for there's a Healesville, not Healesville, Hurstbridge group show that they do there. I've judged a couple of those. So I'm used to judging work. When you're a teacher as well, you have to look at work and evaluate it all the time.
Right.
So I tend to actually kind of enjoy judging.
Good.
Because it's like a big surprise. You walk in and then there's just work everywhere. And then first of all, it's just too much. And then you have to do quite a few swings of the room to sort of really get a good feel. Because when you first look at a piece, it's not the same as when you've had a chance to mull over it a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
So, when you first look at a piece, everything just looks fantastic. It's only when you really start to look at some pieces that you think, oh, okay, there's a few issues here and there's some there and things like that. Look, when it's at a good level, like the Victorian Artists Society one, there's lots to choose from. So it's actually quite difficult because you're pitting style against style.
Right.
So, and technique against technique. And that is not easy, because you've got to take yourself out of the equation, and you've got to take your own work out of the equation when you do it. So if I work in this particular way, I can't be coloured by anyone who seems to have something similar to me.
Right.
I've got to look at it for what it is. I've got to look at a piece of work for what the artist set out to achieve. So if they set out to achieve, an illustrative piece or an abstract piece, or, something that's highly stylized, I've got to look at it through that lens.
Sure.
And I've got to choose the work that achieves the highest standard for what they set out to do.
Sure.
Not choose the piece of work that I find the most aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
Or that's the closest to mine, because that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
I've got to look at it and go, okay, what did each person set out to achieve, and how high a standard do they get to for what they set out to achieve?
Sure.
And then choose the pieces that do that.
It's a tricky job.
It is a very tricky job.
Sure.
And there's a lot of subjectivity in it too.
Sure. So nowadays, your association with VAS, are you affiliated with them at all?
Not necessarily, but they did say that, they're probably going to get me back to maybe judge another show or two.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Warren...
I may do so in the future,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Warren, some refer to you as the Warricle. How did you develop this nickname?
Just the students.
Okay.
Every year you get a new bunch of students and a fresh bunch of personalities, and sort of got that nickname because, being from an illustrative background, I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different mediums. In fact, nearly all mediums, and be able to teach people how to use, watercolor, gouache, colored pencil, dry pastel, oil pastel, acrylic, oils, scraper board, wood engraving, because I've nearly dabbled in just about everything.
Sure.
And indeed, tried a lot of things, throughout my illustrative career. So because of that, got a little bit of an encyclopedia in my mind of lots of different techniques and approaches and things like that. And I've developed notes on, each media and so on.
Sure.
So, and the students, unbeknownst to me, were sort of calling me that, behind my back. And then one of the other teachers heard it and passed it on to me. It's just a term of endearment, saying that,
Sure.
that I know, enough for them to kind of use that name.
Right. Students come up with all interesting things.
Yeah.
You have been teaching part-time at Melbourne Polytechnic for over 32 years now.
Yeah.
What keeps you teaching?
Look, I really do enjoy it. I'd find it very difficult to let go of it, purely because I get to see people with lots of talent and no knowledge. And then I just dump in the knowledge and their talent does the rest.
Sure.
So that's always fun. I love seeing students coming in raw, and then by the end of their term, of whether they stay for 1, 2 or 3 years, you can see their development.
Yeah.
And then you can see their career. I've trained some really good artists out there too. There's some people in the illustration world, there's people in the art world,
sure,
people doing animation, all sorts of different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And do you like the fact that teaching gets you out of your own studio and
yeah. I mean, that's good too. I mean, if you're in your studio and that's all you do, and you're just by yourself, it's definitely much more interesting when you're going out and you're meeting new students all the time, and they're all special. I really do enjoy connecting with the students, helping them. Getting to know them as well is fun too.
Sure.
Over the period, it's a lot of them are either older than me, some are the same age, some are younger. So we get mature age, we get everything in between, and then school leavers, and it's always interesting from a group dynamic point of view, seeing how they relate and relating to them.
Sure, it's a great contrast to the quietness of being in a studio there with your students. Very good. This year, you spent a couple of weeks painting plein air in Vietnam, creating some vivid studies of the urban landscape in gouache. I understand the climate was very challenging as the weather was 40 degrees with high humidity and many onlookers asking questions as you painted. Can you recall some of your experiences painting in Vietnam?
Yeah, so amongst the time that we were there, so we were there for, I can't remember now, I think it was 2 weeks. I can't remember if it was either slightly under or slightly over. But we had lots of other things that we had to do in the program. We had to sort of talk to other affiliate colleges overseas, which was great. And, meeting the students from overseas was wonderful, the teachers. It was a really great experience. Our students loved it as well. But in amongst it, we had a bit of time to do a bit of plein air work. So I had time to do 5 little plein air studies. So one day one, another couple of days later another, and so on throughout the time. So it was challenging. Just the sheer heat and painting in that. I've got my little setup, my little plein air set and a pad, a blank pad, So first of all, doing a quick sketch and then bang, straight on with the gouache. I feel a lot more confident with plein air landscape than I do still life.
Oh, do you?
Still life's probably the least of my experience. So I find plein air landscape a lot more easy to do. I wrap my head around it a lot better. So that and portraiture are my 2 main things. So I was quite comfortable, sitting down doing little landscapes of what was around. As I'm quite used to that. So, and then, we get people coming along and they're sticking their head in, and some people want to take photos with you. Other people would interrupt you and ask questions.
That's right.
Most of them couldn't speak English, so they would just smile and mumble different things.
And you chose to use gouache for these series of plein air sketches. Why gouache, Warren?
Well, number one, you'd have to worry about it, like getting all over you. You can just wash it off. It's very hard to pack oil paints for overseas. You've got to take solvents and all sorts of other things. Taking a little gouache set is a lot easier. So it's just really a time thing. If I was going to do plein air at home, I would only use gouache if I wanted to do really quick, immediate stuff. If I'm doing plein air work, I'll usually use oils back here. When it comes to landscape.
Fantastic. Now, I understand you spend time painting plein air in Seymour, Victoria. What attracts you to this particular landscape?
I like the rocks.
The rocks?
Yeah. So I love the rocks and the landscape and just the hills as well. Just I don't know. I just really like the area. I think when I was a early teen, we went up there on a high school camp, and that's when I first saw the landscape then, and it just stuck in my mind. So I do like going up there and taking some photos and doing a little bit of work up there. And is that do you frequent Seymour very often? Or? Not very often, no. But but when I go to do some landscape, I usually find myself, it's one of the first places I think, where would I like to go up there now? Right.
With plein air, Warren, do you prefer to paint in the summer months or the winter months? What's your preference?
Well, obviously not winter.
Yeah. You don't like the cold.
No, the cold I'm not a big fan of.
Sure.
And the summer, I'm not a huge fan of the summer either.
Okay.
But obviously spring and autumn, I really enjoy doing some plein air.
Some lovely colours.
Yeah, some great colours, and the temperature's nice and stable and even. If you pick a good day or so on. Yeah.
Sure. Considering that you entered the fine art world rather later in life, you have already been successful in securing several commissions, such as your portrait of Wayne Morrison, former lecturer of surgery at the University of Melbourne and head of plastic and reconstructive surgery at St. Vincent's Hospital. The painting was a finalist in the 2017 Moran Prize. This is another one of your remarkable portraits that showcases your technical prowess in drawing and painting, particularly the sensitivity you used in painting Morrison's hands. Can you provide some insight into the process of painting this fine portrait?
Yeah, well, he's a lovely guy. He is incredibly smart man. I first did some work with Wayne back when I was illustrating.
Okay.
There was a job I did for the Microsurgery Foundation when I was an illustrator.
Okay.
Where they were doing a limited edition book to land on the desk of the richest, 100, 500 people in Australia. So it was part pro bono, so I did it for half price. They got a top photographer to do a similar thing, and then they got a design firm to work half price as well. So it was a little bit of donation as well as work for a really top line sort of document.
Sure.
So it was beautifully designed and photographed, and I did the illustrations, of the actual accident.
Okay.
So the reason why I had to do that is to soften the blow so that people wouldn't throw up when they looked at it.
Right.
And then they took photographs of what the microsurgeon did to put them back together. So I did the ugly stuff, but made it look pretty. And then the pretty stuff the photographer took of the outcome of what the microsurgeon did and sort of getting it all back together.
Wow.
So, and I had to go in there to the O'Brien Institute, which is where Wayne was, I think he was the head back then. So Wayne's got a long history of, real microsurgery prominence.
Okay.
I suppose you'd say probably in the top 2 surgeons in the world, back in the, the 90s, early 2000 or whatever. And he, with the O'Brien Institute, have been responsible for training microsurgeons all around the world. They'd all come into the O'Brien Institute to be trained and then go out. So he's a brilliant man, really nice.
Yeah.
And so I worked with him back then.
Yeah.
And then, I had the idea, I think I want to paint him. So I called him and said, I'll be in that.
Sure.
So I got the chance to, talk with him about a couple of ideas for it. Did a couple of photography sessions, got into the painting, did a couple of live sessions as well. And where he was, willing to sit and things like that too. So I did a bit of both. And so once again, my normal thing, design process,
right.
Getting all the reference, the pose, discussing with him,
sure.
Drawing aspect, then painting aspect, and a little bit of live stuff too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what comes of that particular portrait today?
He bought that.
Oh, he purchased it.
He purchased it. Yeah.
Fantastic, lovely.
Yeah.
Seeing a few close-ups of the particular portrait, Warren. I mean, the hands in particular are very remarkably painted. It's fascinating because when you do look at the edges of the hands, you use a little bit. It appears like you use a little bit of scumbling to set off almost like an aura.
Yeah.
Where the edge of the hand is.
That was kind of intentional with that particular painting. I wanted to have this aura
Yes.
around his hands and his head, because it's his brain, his hands that have done such amazing work. I mean,
Yeah.
he's put so many people back together over the years, and, you know, like people that would have been, you know, in catastrophic conditions, you know, where he's reattached things and,
Wow.
you know, reconstructed things and
Incredible,
and so on. So, yeah.
Sure. So that's interesting that you started the painting, but then as he saw it come together, he liked it so much that he ended up purchasing it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely. Now, there are several Australian painters working today who have developed a very refined technical aptitude to draw and paint portraits remarkably well. However, one thing that separates your portraits is the focus on allegorical subjects. What is it that draws you to this particular genre of painting?
I suppose it would say with an illustrative background and having to always have a narrative there, I kind of like having a narrative at certain times. I mean, other times, you know, you just want to paint what's in front of me.
Sure.
And sort of, you know, really get into light and shade and, you know, explore texture and, you know, all sorts of different things like that. Whereas, you know, quite often if I'm doing a larger piece or a more prominent one, I love to have some kind of narrative weaved in around it to make it a little bit more interesting to look at than just a straight portrait.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. An allegorical painting of yours which is intriguing is your painting titled Contemplation, which was a finalist in the 2016 Iran Prize and the 2018 Shirley Hanna National Portrait Award. The painting features your daughter Rebecca reading the Bible while wearing clothing featuring the colours of the Virgin Mary. Can you explain the symbolism behind this particular painting?
Well, once again, there's a lot of symbolism in it. There's even the plants I've chosen in the foreground, and the cracked pottery on the ground, and the fact that she is holding the Bible in one hand and on the other hand she's sitting on a rock. And then if you look carefully, there's a gold vein running down the rock, and there's also some frankincense and myrrh sitting on there as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different symbols that I've kind of stitched and woven into the whole painting, whilst not being too, you know, obvious.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that painting in your personal collection?
Yes. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Now, looking at a lot of the themes that run through your work, Warren, there are a lot of religious motives that run through your work, and I understand that you are a faith-based person, a Pentecostal Christian. Do you see yourself creating more religious work in future, perhaps for your church or taking on commissions?
Well, probably not for the church, because, you know, no one really has money to to do that. So I don't. When I create a piece of work, I don't sort of really have some kind of push that I'm trying to, you know, deliver out there or anything like that. It's more, you know, an idea that I might have. It's more of a, you know, a direction that I want to go in. So nothing specific when it comes to, okay, I'm trying to, you know, say this or that.
Sure.
You know, and most of the time I'm just creating work, you know, for the sake of actually creating the work. Sure. As well.
Sure. Yeah. Lovely. So the colours of the Virgin Mary's gown.
Well, that was just in that instance. It was just to kind of bring a traditional feel into it.
Sure.
You know, if you look at the art of the period that I was kind of aiming around, you're sort of looking at Raphael and ones like that too, and, you know, the blue and the red was a very popular colour.
Sure.
That Raphael and, you know, a lot of the Renaissance artists used.
Sure.
So to bring in a kind of a real Renaissance-y type of feel, I actually selected those colours.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much to actually make a statement of, oh, this is the Virgin Mary or anything like that. It was more using those colours because it evokes, you know, a certain historical, you know, direction.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And it is very subtle the way that you hint at these religious motives, which is very lovely. Now, your painting titled Assurance in Disorder features a portrait of your son juxtaposed against a distorted landscape background. Can you explain the significance of this particular painting?
Yeah, well, that painting was produced during lockdown.
Okay.
So I titled it that because my son, he's a very positive, upbeat, bouncy person. I mean, if you've seen what he does or what he did do as a career prior to his new direction now, he spends a lot of his time upside down.
Right.
He's very, very acrobatic and has done festivals, and he's really brilliant at what he does. He can do some of the most eye-opening moves that you'll see around.
Wow.
And so therefore, because it was during lockdown, it was very, very unsettling time for everybody. And, particularly for careers like his, where he was teaching gymnastics, but he was also, involved in, doing performances for festivals and parties and all sorts of different things like that. That all got shut down.
Yeah.
So I just decided to depict him looking really confident.
Sure.
And stable while the world was kind of spinning. So for him, I put the world upside down and him stable.
Sure.
Yeah, so hence it was called, Assurance in Disorder.
Sure. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Because without knowing that, when you look at the painting, it is very tricky to pinpoint what exactly you're touching on.
Exactly.
Yeah. A particular large format painting of yours that is featured on your website consists of a desolate landscape and yourself as the focal point wrestling with another man. The painting appears to be a work in progress as an underpainting in red-brown tones. Can you explain the meaning and ideas in this piece?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to talk about because it isn't complete yet.
Sure.
And I don't kind of want to release too much about that one.
That's fine.
It's not far away from finished.
Sure.
So we might have to wait on that one.
Sure. I completely understand, Warren.
Yeah.
Yep, sure. As we have come to learn, you are primarily self-taught. At this point in your life, do you see any benefit in training at some of the established ateliers and academies around the world to further refine your technique?
I think learning is always lifelong.
Yes.
So anyone can benefit from any form of learning new things. But having access to those things is a different thing. Like finding the time to leave your own practice and also, the teaching aspect and leaving family is a difficult proposition.
Yeah.
So I've been, sort of lucky enough to be able to have a capacity to teach myself different techniques. So I can usually, upon examining something and researching it, come up with something that's pretty close to, what might be in some of those schools anyway.
Sure. Are there any particular schools that you follow that are overseas?
Look, none so much, but there's definitely artists that I keep my eye on and things like that too.
Sure. Now, you're competent in many mediums such as oil, acrylic, squash, and even woodcut, as we've come to understand. How do you choose what medium to use for a specific work?
In the illustration days, it was all based on budget, what the client wanted, because usually you've got a folio and they look at your folio and go, I want that.
Yes.
So the choice of what you did would be based on what's existing in your folio.
Sure.
Whereas these days, when I'm creating a piece of art, mostly my objective is representational. So therefore, I most likely will reach for oils first.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But if I'm doing a study, and I've got limited time, then working in gouache could be a thing. Yeah. Or I might work in watercolor if it's a study.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
You've drawn a lot from your experience in illustration, which has really been beneficial for you as you entered the fine art world, such as the way that you create paintings, as you mentioned, your design process, your ability to work across a large breadth of media. Is there any other parallels or any other advantages you see that you've actually taken from illustration and have actually benefited you in your fine art career?
Yeah, nearly everything that I learned came from the illustration world.
Sure.
And, exploring technique. I mean, I had a lot of options, doing different jobs where technique wasn't specified.
Yeah.
So I took that opportunity to learn things almost on the job.
Sure.
So if I had a different medium or that I wanted to explore and I was given an open brief, I'd often go, I'm going to have a crack at this, and I'd try something new and work out how to do it. And then, it was just something that I knew how to do then.
Sure.
So I always loved doing that when I was an illustrator.
Yeah.
And that was doing different things all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Warren, I understand you use Rosemary & Co. brushes. What is it about these particular brushes that you favour, and what has made you settle on this particular brand?
Well, they're not the only ones I use. Obviously, I use others. Like I'll have a whole series of, cheaper brushes where you can really mistreat them and, and be quite abusive to them, and it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Whereas when I'm doing really important stuff or things that need a certain touch to them, then I find that Rosemary & Co. Brushes, they deliver the results that I would like.
Right.
And they're just they're handmade. They've just got a really great feel. They've got a lot of different fiber types.
Yeah.
And shapes.
Sure.
So, combining all that together, handmade, really well made, really good feel for different things and different techniques, then, I just found them to be really good. I sort of heard of them from some overseas illustrators.
Yeah.
That a lot of people were using them, and I thought, we'll give them a go.
Sure.
And when I did, I just discovered that, the level of touch that you can get from them and from the different types that they've got are really good.
Sure. Yeah. And they're very well known now amongst realist artists, and obviously they've collaborated with a lot of realist painters to release brush sets that are specific to the types of brushes that that particular painter would use in their own work. Now, some painters prefer to keep their loyalties with one brand of oil paint, and others prefer to mix and match. Is there a particular brand of oils that you prefer to stick with?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly use Langridge. But then, I'll throw in other brands as well. Like it could be anything. Could be Art Spectrum. Could be Winsor & Newton.
Right.
Could be Michael Harding, could be like once I've gone past Langridge, because they're the kind of staple that I use.
Sure.
I'd probably go with any brand apart from that, as long as it's got the pigment code that I'm after, because usually the name changes will change from brand to brand, but the pigment codes don't.
Sure.
So as long as you know what the pigment code is, then I'm happy to swap brands for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I like using Marcus Will's lead white.
Sure.
So a big plug for Marcus.
Absolutely.
It's very good lead white.
Sure. So he manufactures his own lead white from his studios. That's Marcus Will's, very fine Melbourne-based painter. Now, Warren, you recently had your new studio built in your home. Can you explain the planning that went into it and why you were trying to aim and what you were trying to aim for with its design.
Yeah, so with the studio, it's actually removed from the house. When I was illustrating, I used to work a room in the house, but it came untenable for fine art because it was just too restricted size-wise. So the main objective was size. So
Sure.
it's about 6 meters by 3.6 meters. So it's a little bit over double the size of what I was working in.
Sure.
And it's got a couple of skylights. It's got western-faced obscure windows to allow those windows to be open all the time, to allow the light in. It's got, a really good set of 5,000 Kelvin lighting in here as well, and just got a sink. So it's really just designed as a general art space, really.
Sure.
With good light and controllable light too, and that as well.
Lovely, and it still has the smell of a newly built space.
Yeah, I'm yet to make it dirty, so
sure. It's interesting. You've got a particular quote here that I've noticed taped to your brush table, Warren, which is a little bit of a reminder of you of just the philosophy of seeing. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I just wrote down on a piece of paper, don't look at the object, look at the peripheral.
Sure.
So it's not something I always do, but it's something that I draw upon when I want to see overall context in relation to what I'm actually painting.
Sure.
So it's just a little reminder, not to get bogged down in just the one thing,
right?
But sort of to take an overview.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But during painting, but then swapping back to being very focused as well.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And do you spend a lot of time during the day mainly in this studio painting, or are you a night painter?
I'm an all over the place painter.
Sure.
So I don't tend to be really much an early morning painter.
Yeah.
I usually get started at mid-morning or something like that, and then I'll stop when I feel like it. Sometimes I'll go later, through to 9 o'clock or something like that.
Right.
Obviously with breaks.
Right.
And then sometimes I'll finish earlier. Just depends on what I feel like doing. If I have to finish something, then obviously I will start earlier and extend things as needed.
Sure. Fantastic. Yeah. Today you continue to work part-time at Melbourne Polytechnic, teaching illustration and fine art while creating your own paintings in your newly built home studio. Do you enjoy the balance between teaching and focusing on creating your own paintings?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. We've touched on that already, but it is. I do find it fun.
Sure.
Going back from one to the other. Yeah.
And you can find a lot of answers to things that you might be struggling with in a particular composition or things in your studio when you're out teaching, explaining something to a student, and it clicks. I could actually apply that to what I'm doing and solve that problem, solve that particular issue.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that happen like that.
Sure.
There's so many talented students that are coming through all the time, and you can get inspired by your students and things like that as well.
Absolutely.
See some great thing that they're working on, and
In your position, being a teacher of fine art and illustration in the TAFE sector, Warren, do you see the younger students that are coming through that have an interest in learning traditional representational realist skills?
Yeah, we always get our mixture. The population's always nicely spread with a certain amount of person or people that like to do representational stuff, some that like to do stylized stuff, others more cartoon stuff, and those who do abstract stuff. So, and a really good blend and a mixture of all between. So you'd be amazed at just how every year there's a certain type of person that or even a certain group of people that like to do each of the different things.
Sure, great.
And I really enjoy that the challenge of both teaching fine art at times in there's an advanced diploma that I'm a mentor in, which is general. So they could be a painter, it could be a printmaker, an illustrator, a animator, a sculptor, it could be a realist artist, it could be anything.
Right.
So they're a mixed bag that I mentor there, but I also teach in the Diploma of Illustration, and it's my almost link to the past in a way.
Yeah.
In that I still like teaching those other mediums and sort of being involved in it, even though I don't do them now.
Yeah.
I still like to have some kind of connection to those different techniques and different mediums.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself retiring from teaching anytime soon?
Not anytime soon. When the normal time is, I probably will.
Sure.
But I still like it too much at the moment to say goodbye.
Very good. Can you outline what a typical painting day looks like for you?
Yeah, not particularly complicated. Once you've done all the normal things, for the day, just coming in, setting up, getting ready for whatever it is. If it's me going on site to do a landscape, I'll just pack up my painting box with everything in there of a limited range of what I need.
Sure.
And going somewhere. If it's working on a large project here, it's just making sure that I, get all your, your palette well set up, getting the position that you want in the studio, because it's different from piece to piece, I find, in here.
Sure.
Sometimes I'll want to use an easel, other times I'll use the wall easel that I created.
Sure.
So, if I do a still life, it's similar to what we did today, where, I'll set up in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the job that I'm working on and what I feel like doing as well. So
sure.
I tend to not have too many patterns in a way. I sort of, break things a lot.
Do you get this thing where if you've missed a few days in a row painting, you start to feel guilty that you should be in the studio painting?
No, not in if I've had a bit of a break, which I've had a bit of a break because I've had to assemble all this and get it ready, you can get a bit rusty. I feel a bit rusty at the moment, but I reckon after a couple of weeks of painting again, I'll be back in the flow.
Sure. One particular thing I've noticed in your studio, Warren, is a lot of the canvases that you have finished or that you are working on, you face them towards the wall. So what's your justification behind that?
I think getting distracted.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. I do tend to like, if I'm working on something or even at the moment I'm only working on one thing, so I do tend to like to just look at that. Sure. And just really hone in on it.
Absolutely, because you can start to look at your previous work and realise, oh, that's problematic, that area is problematic.
Yeah, or not just that, you look at it and sort of try and draw too many comparisons, and at times you think, oh, I need to put more detail into this than what I should. Sure. Because if you see your other work from a distance, it looks more detailed than what it is than when it's straight in front of you. Yeah. So I do tend to kind of like to hide the others away. Sure.
Do you feel as though drawing and painting are an integral part of your life? That is to say, do you feel as though you must draw and paint to remain happy?
Tough question. It's more of a drive to do it, I'd say. I don't know what I would feel if I didn't, because I haven't really not done it. It wouldn't be essential. Like, I've got enough other things in life to kind of, to keep me quite happy. But I'd certainly miss it if you suddenly couldn't do it. So there is that drive to create, to produce things. Yeah.
Sure. And is it natural for you, Warren, to just want to draw and paint, or does it take a lot of effort for you to get in here and actually start drawing and painting?
Depends. It could be different. You know, some days it's like takes a bit of effort. Other days you can't wait to get in and start something or finish it.
Sure.
Yeah, and it depends on how much of a flow you're in too. Like when you get in a really good flow, it actually gets better.
Yeah.
So the more time that you have, like I've had quite a break between, you know, my last things and then, you know, what we did this morning, which, you know, it's almost like the first time I picked up something in a little while, because I've had to set this place up and, you know, work on the garden and all sorts of different things to kind of make it functional.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What are some of the projects you are currently working on, and where do you see your life and work going in the future?
Well, currently, like you said, I'm working on that big pic of myself and someone else wrestling.
That's right.
So I'm working on that. That should be finished relatively soon. But then after that, I'm planning on, you know, maybe a couple more landscapes and some more possible larger portraiture as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. And where do you see your life and work going in the future?
I don't know. More of the same. I know I've got a grandchild coming in 20 weeks, so
lovely.
That will change life.
Sure.
Can't wait for that. So, yeah, we'll have to see.
Do you see yourself drawing and painting for the rest of your life, Warren?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I couldn't stop. Yeah, I'd always have that desire to do it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely. Regarding your teaching, do you have any upcoming workshops or demonstrations that viewers can attend?
Well, there's always a problem. I get asked to do a lot of one-on-one stuff and things like that. That is difficult time-wise, and also from a conflict of interest point of view. So I do tend to limit what I do in regard to teaching to Melbourne Polytechnic at Preston, where, so that's the main thing that I do from that perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, just touching on your sources of inspiration when it comes to artists who are deceased, we'll touch on contemporary artists in a moment, but deceased artists in particular, is there anyone who you hold in high admiration, who you aspire to be like Warren?
Look, that's very difficult because coming from an illustration background as well, I have very wide aesthetic taste and sort of inspiration from. So, you know, I like all the different art movements and, you know, the history. I mean, look, obviously I've looked into, you know, the Renaissance and, you know, all the periods after that and through the modern and so on. As far as illustration's concerned, they were all influences in what I did over the years.
Okay.
Whereas, you know, a lot of the stuff that I do, which is less allegorical, I'm looking at, you know, just any of the representational artists through time, really.
Sure.
So the full gamut.
Right.
When I'm doing allegorical stuff, I'm mainly looking at, you know, historical work.
Right.
You know, from, you know, like it could be any of the big names that everyone would know.
So it's not a particular artist you follow.
It's not a particular artist. It's more a feel from a number of them.
Sure.
Rather than trying to focus on any one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
Because that way it keeps your work looking like a bit original rather than just a copy of what is actually out there.
Sure. Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's sort of like looking at a wide range of influences and then outputting something that, you know,
sure,
is a little bit unique to what you want to do.
Great. Now, in other exciting news, Warren, I understand that you're working towards a exhibition with Joe White next year. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And how's that all going, the preparation for that?
Yeah, all good. I've got probably enough work now to go up.
Sure.
So the rest is, any others I can do in the meantime.
Fantastic. Yeah. Very good. Approaching the end of the interview.
Yes.
The realist movement in Australia has developed considerably over the last 10 years. Although we may not be as far along in the revival of realist art as America or Europe, we are indeed making progress. What is your opinion on the state of contemporary realist art in Australia, and where do you see it going in the future?
It's hard to know, but Australia has got a very diverse art culture, particularly when you step into the contemporary realm. There's a lot less focus solely on realism,
right?
Like that you would get in the States.
Yeah.
In the States, there's a whole movement over there of people that love realism. You've got a big marketplace for people buying it, so therefore there's a large clientele of potential collectors over there who enjoy realism. Over here, I find that there's not a huge number of really high quality realism artists. There's quite a number, but up in the upper realms of it, there's not a great number. And there's certainly no collaborative or anything like that. No. But everyone doing their thing.
Yeah.
But look, I kind of enjoy that about the contemporary art scene in Australia, and that is that you've got amazing variety in all sorts of different ways.
Sure.
And I really love that. I mean, I really love the variety that you get in the high-end contemporary shows. I like going to those exhibitions and seeing work which is really heavily stylistic. But then I really enjoy seeing, the more realism stuff. I just like variety.
Sure.
That's what I probably like the most about.
It's great. You have a very open mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who would you say are some of the leading realist painters working in Australia today?
Okay, that's difficult off the top of my head. I did have a look at a few names. I mean, look, I've got a few favourites. I mean, even though I buy paint off Marcus Wills, I do absolutely love his work.
Sure.
And I really appreciate the skill and the absolute talent of his work.
Yeah.
Just his ability to sculpt forms and create sort of just brilliant pieces of art. So he'd be one. I really like Andrew Bonu's work as well.
Yeah.
Then there's others. Sally Ryan and Dagmar Cruella and there's Lewis Miller.
Sure.
Look, there's too many to name.
Right.
Literally, I could walk into any Doug Moran exhibit and Archibald exhibit or some of the other prominent shows and just look at the work there and say I pretty much like them all.
Sure.
But as far as realism goes, there's obviously the Searing Hannaford and Robert Hannaford and plenty of others as well. Newer illustrators painters and artists that are coming up. Kirsty Nielsen, Paul Newton's another great realist artist. So, look, there's just too many to mention.
Sure.
Being someone who loves variety, for me to say any group of artists over another, it would be true to the fact that I really appreciate a lot of different things.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how about realist painters working internationally? Who do you believe are some of the leading ones?
Well, Once again, it's the same thing again. But I mean, I do enjoy looking at Jeremy Lipking's work.
Yeah.
And Joshua LaRocque, Michael Klein.
Yeah.
There's a whole host of other ones. There's some English illustrators that I've forgotten off the top of my head. Adrian Gottlieb.
Sure.
Who else is there? Rupert. Sorry, not Rupert. Is it Rupert? I've forgotten his name. But look, there's too many to mention as well.
Sure. Now, in conclusion, Warren, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. I congratulate you on your success you've had with your work so far, and I really look forward to following your progress with your work into the future to see where you go with the allegorical paintings in particular. I think that's a very a strong part of your body of work, the allegorical paintings, and I look forward to see them develop and seeing how you go as well in the Melbourne art world. I know you're very active in the prize scene, so obviously you've won the Doug Moran in 2015, but you've been shortlisted so many times for that. So it'll be interesting to see where your trajectory goes from here on out. Just before we end, I want to ask if you wanted to state your contact details so that viewers can reach you regarding any of your teaching, or perhaps anyone that would like to commission a piece off you.
Sure. So yeah, they can just go to my website. If they just Google my name, you'll find my website there where my email address is and contact phone number.
Sure.
And then you can sort of commission work that way. If there's anything else you want to discuss, we can talk about that.
Sure.
Or if you just want to contact Melbourne Polytechnic Art Department, you can actually get onto me that way as well if you want to discuss education.
Sure, fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're maintaining an Instagram page?
Yes, yep.
Fantastic. And you update that quite regularly?
Yeah, fairly regularly.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sometimes you get a bit slack with it, but...
Sure. Great. Well, Warren, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you very much for inviting us into your studio today. I really appreciate that. It's very, very inspiring to see your work develop, and the amount of detail, especially in your work, is something that I've really taken away from this experience. So keep up the fantastic work, and I look forward to keeping in touch and watching your work develop into the future.
Thank you.
No problem.